No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken, episode number 320. And you know, we speak a lot here on Outspoken about why we need a media and political revolution. Well, today we're going to discuss how we can get one with Bruce Unfiltered. He is one of the brand new voices in the independent media, also the author of the book, Politics for People Who Don't Give a Toss About Politics, how the system screws you and how to start fighting back. So we're going to discuss that fight back today. What can we do? How can the system change? And why it is time to finally abolish and move away from the corrupt and crooked mainstream media forever. And I'm pretty sure you're on board with that. And because this is a special edition of the Uncancelled interview, there is no Royal Uncancelled after show today, but don't worry, lots of Royal videos available for you on YouTube. We will be back with the after show on Monday. Likewise, back Monday with the Greatest Britain and Union Jackass 2. But of course, you can join our Substack now to become part of the Outspoken community. www.outspoken.live is the address. But now, let's go. The mainstream media is dead. We do not need the British bashing corporations, Sly News, woke ITV, Channel 4 News, CNN, MSDNC as Donald Trump calls it. We do not need it anymore because there are so many new voices who are covering the news in a way that you can trust because they are not owned by billionaires. They are not corrupted by party politics, and they will report the truth. And one of those fascinating new voices in the British independent media space is Bruce Unfiltered. Now, you may well know him from his burgeoning TikTok and Facebook accounts. But if not, here's a little peek at how he covers the news.
We are now living in a society where you can be punished not for what you've done, but for what someone thinks you might do. And no, this isn't a Black Mirror script or a dodgy sci-fi film. It's real. Afghan asylum seekers have just been charged with the serious sexual assault of a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. And I've got to ask a question. What exactly do Hope Not Hate, Stand Up to Racism and Antifa actually stand for? Because I've not heard a word from them. Because this is the most authoritarian UK government in modern history. Let's not faff about. This is deadly serious. The UK just became a digital authoritarian state. Australia, France, Canada, even the UAE are now officially telling their people, be careful when visiting the UK. Not Syria, not Colombia, Britain. Every single image we see of these men arriving in this country, not one of them has a burn, a scar, a cut, a broken arm, a sprained ankle. Nothing suggests that they have come from a war zone. An illegal migrant has live streamed his entire journey across the channel step by step before proudly showing off his 4-star taxpayer-funded hotel room near Heathrow. And yes, he told his followers, tell your friends to come. A Labour councillor, Ricky Jones, caught on video, finger across his throat, saying rioters were disgusting Nazi fascists who should have their throats cut, walks free from court.
Who needs Emily Maitlis or Lewis Goodall or, Krishnan Guru Murphy or Tom Bradby? And Bruce Unfiltered, so brilliant to have you on Outspoken. We've been following your channel for quite some time now, and it is really interesting how the way that you are doing the news is the way that the people want to consume the news. What do you think has changed?
I think it is exactly what you said earlier. I think there's a widespread realization and wake-up call to the fact that the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, and we've got a prime example of it with the UTK protests. They were saying there were 150,000 people there. I think anyone with a modicum of sense could see that drone footage of the crowds. It's insane. How can they broadcast that with images showing 2 miles of people wall to wall covering the streets, and people have just lost faith in it? I think they stopped believing it. But my worry, Dan, is I think there are, when we look at it realistically, it's a small amount of people really that have woken up to it. because middle England, the 10 million, the people that don't vote, the people that abstain from voting, who don't vote in council elections, don't vote in parliament, they're all still walking around with their heads in the clouds. And I don't blame them, because they're doing their weekly jobs. They come home, they stick their 10 minutes of BBC News on or ITV News, watch a couple of headlines. That's their news feed.
Do you think that's changing, though? I mean, you get millions and millions of views on TikTok alone with your broadcasts.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is changing. I think what it was as well is most people were, I think, on TikTok. A lot of people were doing what I do on TikTok, especially myself. And now we've started moving into things like Instagram, to Facebook, to YouTube. And more people are picking it up, and more people are seeing it. And I think they just like the no nonsense. They like the no nonsense. I'll just tell you it as it is. This is what happened. This is what they're telling you. This is what really happened. This is the government statistics that they're not showing you.
Absolutely. And I also really think people are much more likely to trust an individual rather than an organisation now. And I say this a lot because, remember, I come from the mainstream media. I know how corrupted the mainstream media is. Yeah. I know what it's like to work for billionaires. Remember, I spent decades working for Rupert Murdoch, Lord Rothermere, Paul Marshall, Legatum. All of them come to the news with their own personal vested interests. And of course, that is passed down to the journalists who are working for those billionaires.
Yeah.
No matter how good they are as a person, no matter how much you might like them, unfortunately, they are not able to be there to deliver exactly what they think. And trust me, when you do, that's when you're forced out. That's what happened to me. That's why so many others have been cancelled, be it Katie Hopkins or Father Calvin Robinson. So there is an agenda in the mainstream media. No matter whether you like these individuals or not, they are not able to tell you the full truth. And I do think people are waking up to the idea of having a relationship with an individual because everyone knows my biases, where I've come from, what my background is, and how I deliver them the news.
Yeah. And I think some people, relating to that, people will say that I have a bias because I generally try and promote Reform UK, but we can talk about that. There's a reason for it. It's understanding the political system. But my news focus isn't about them. It's about opening people's eyes up. Again, with the book and everything, is to open people's eyes up to the complex system that the voting system is, that Parliament is, that everything is. And the news outlets are backing that up. They're controlled. It's not uncommon knowledge that the BBC is the government's broadcasting thing, and people are starting to see it for what it is. And what I do is short, quick takes on a subject. The government have told you this, the mainstream media are telling you this. Well, funny enough, this was what's in the files that they didn't show you. Here's what was found in an article somewhere in the country that they didn't tell you about, and it's just getting that information out.
Yes, absolutely. And we will get to your book in the wider system very soon. But just on the mainstream media situation, why do you think they are so corrupted? Like, is it a financial motivation? Are they just so blinkered?
I think it has to be financial. And the thing is I think as well, a lot of people inside it don't want to say what they're saying, but I think there's scarcity of they're scared to lose their jobs, and we see this across the board. I know people who work for universities. I know people who work inside certain organisations and institutions where they don't want to be seen at a national protest, because if their face is seen, they'll be in HR in the morning. And I think there are more people in mainstream media. I think we saw it the other day when I think it was the BBC were covering something, and even one of the presenters, they've got some, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he started making some comments regarding the Charlie Kirk thing, and even one of the broadcasters sort of took back, and they got back. The backlash from it was unbelievable.
But I mean, what happened after the assassination of Charlie Kirk is just one reason why people are so disillusioned with the mainstream media. I mean, there has been just a lengthy campaign by everyone from the BBC, MSNBC, the cases that you reference, absolutely, but to Emily Maitlis, James O'Brien, Lewis Goodall, Alistair Campbell, literally lying about this man, lying about his views, saying that he wanted to stone gay men to death. It is a lie.
Misquoting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is a dead man who's just been shot by someone on the hard left. And I do believe it is this reason why people are so disgusted by the mainstream media that they are switching off.
Yeah, and if you've got nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. Because there was no, and I saw James O'Brien annoyed me mainly because he opened up with what he was saying as a, so who is Charlie Kirk? And he went on to then talk about, I actually don't know who this man is, and it was my kids that told me about him, and then went on to then make accusations about things that he'd done and things that he'd said. And it's like you've opened up by saying you don't know who he is. Now you're criticising him for his viewpoint without understanding what he used to do and what he was doing on these university campuses. Smeared him as something that you don't understand. And the problem is that LBC audience, I saw the comments from LBC listeners, and it's disgraceful, mate. It's disgraceful.
This is the thing. There is such a turn-off going on.
Yeah.
People who previously were not awake to this, realizing, and look, I think we've all had radicalization moments as I described them over the past decade. I mean, for me, certainly it was after the Brexit vote when I saw that there was such an attempt by the establishment, the British deep state, working with the mainstream media to overturn the biggest democratic vote in British history. I mean, I was executive editor of The Sun at the time, very much in the mainstream media. The Sun was a Brexit supporting newspaper. Our front page at the time, this is a red line on immigration, is widely credited with helping to influence the Brexit vote, or at least bring attention to it. But of course, it was actually after the vote when I was radicalized.
Okay.
Because it was when I saw, oh my God, like they actually want to overturn this.
Yeah.
They actually are so horrified that the public went against them.
Yeah.
They are going to do everything they can to overturn it. And that's why we came so close to Brexit being overturned. And even though, obviously, I'm a critic of Boris Johnson on so many issues, including COVID, including the Boris wave, and sometimes people sort of misinterpret my support of Boris Johnson because I was the first, and I mean, it's all on the record. I mean, I turned on the government viciously over the COVID pandemic, more than virtually anyone in the mainstream media. So much so that I was actually censored, or at least attempted to be censored by my bosses at The Sun, who wanted me to stop writing about the lockdowns because they felt that it was being too harsh on Boris. And remember, The Sun and News Corporation and News UK were receiving millions and millions and millions of pounds at that point to push the COVID propaganda.
Yeah.
But where I do give Boris credit, and I always will, is that he was the man that stopped the Brexit vote being overturned. Because imagine if that had happened, the trust in the system would have been gone for good. And I think it is now.
Yeah.
Because Brexit hasn't delivered what we thought it would be. But that was my radicalization moment, to be honest. But for others, it happened during COVID.
Yeah.
For some people, it's happened when they've seen the treatment of Tommy Robinson, or the way that people who they loved have been sacked for doing very little. For some, it's been the fact that horrible people at the BBC tried to support Hugh Edwards, knowing that he was a paedophile. So I would argue all of us have had our little radicalization moments over the past decade, when previously maybe we thought, oh, well, the mainstream media, they might be a little bit biased, but they're sort of fundamentally telling us the truth. Now we know, oh my goodness, not only are they not telling us the truth, they're trying to set a narrative.
Yeah.
They're trying to sell
they're setting an agenda.
politics.
Yeah, they're trying to set an agenda, 100%. And I've this is something that I maintain on my platform: is there is an obvious agenda there. There is an obvious silencing of people, and I fully agree with you about the radicalised thing. It's sometimes seen as a strange word to say, but you do get radicalised by certain events, Brexit, exactly what you said, by COVID, by the fact that you've seen a woman arrested for holding a flag up, or a woman sent to jail for writing a tweet, which
Sarah Jones and Lucy Connolly.
So, yes, you become radicalised by these isolated incidents. And I think once that happens, you then start opening your eyes more to everything else that's going on. The corruption inside Parliament, MPs that are abusing the system, the amount of people that probably didn't have any understanding of what went on with regard to MPs' expenses and the way they corrupt the system got massively highlighted a week ago by Angela Rayner. And that got broadcast, luckily. I'll give the MSM credit where credit.
The expenses scandal, though, was another radicalisation moment for many. Because it's like, oh my God, they're all in this for themselves.
Yeah. And it did expose. It exposed and exposes to more people. You need to start paying attention to this, because if Angela Rayner is doing it, and she's the deputy prime minister, how many more? And I'm not accusing anyone, I'm not making any accusations here, but the question does have to be asked is if she's doing it and trying to get away with it, which is, let's be honest, what she was trying to do, and got caught out or tripped up, how many more of them are doing it?
Indeed. By the way, it was Sarah White.
Sarah White.
Sarah
Yes.
White.
Sarah White.
And she's an amazing woman.
Yeah, I spoke to her yesterday.
She's an amazing woman. Yeah,
Yeah.
she spoke at the Tommy Robinson rally.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible. What was your radicalisation moment?
I'm going to be honest with you. It was COVID, a little bit of Brexit as well, and in my opinion, the fact that we never got it. I was at my sort of entry into politics came definitely through the Brexit vote, and it came through the Theresa May years of seeing Keir Starmer when he was the shadow Brexit secretary, and their constant trying to scupper the withdrawal agreement. 3 years we had of that being scuppered. So that kind of, I would say, brought me to the fore of being more interested in politics, but then definitely COVID. COVID was the one that hit the lockdowns, the misinformation, the way they tried to stop things coming out that should have come out. That I don't know how we can go too much into vaccines and various things like that, but we've obviously seen now the evidence of what they did. And my personal opinion is, and I won't back down from this, is I think the first lockdown they did it not out of good faith, but did it out of they thought that was the reason why. For me, the second and third one was to actually get data on what would happen if we lock these areas down. How much logistics do we need in a certain area for food? How many people are going to go against it? How much money do we need in an area? How many shops do we need open? How much electric are we going to be consuming? What do we need to worry about water? I think they started using it as a precursor, and this might sound conspiracy to some people. We're starting to see things like the data use and access bill coming in.
Agree.
We're starting to see things like the restriction of free speech, censorship. They're using data, and they're using things, starting to use those things against us, trying to play on narratives. And I think they used the last two lockdowns in COVID to assess how the country reacts in different ways when they're locked down in pockets.
Big time. How easy will it be to introduce a Chinese-style social credit scheme, for example, on the population in the future?
Yes.
And this was the reason why I fought so hard throughout COVID, constantly calling it out from very early on, actually. I mean, I wasn't before Peter Hitchens, and I give credit to Peter Hitchens. He was first on anti-lockdowns. But in terms of mainstream media columnists, pretty much after Peter Hitchens and Toby Young, I was the next, because I could see what was happening. And remember, that was quite difficult, well, more than quite difficult to do at the time. We were being utterly destroyed, granny killer, the full words. But the reason I did it was because I saw exactly what you're talking about. This is why they're going to want to do it in the future. And unfortunately, what the British public did show, and actually most populations, I mean, New Zealand, Australia, that we are way too compliant, way too trusting. But there has now been a significant backlash that I always predicted. It's like, why do you think the vaccine rates are down for children, you absolute fools? They're down because you forced us all to do something against our will, which we knew you were lying to us about. Some went along with it anyway. But the point is, of course, there was a consequence of it. And I think a lot of what we're seeing at the moment, with the overall distrust of the system, with the huge support for Tommy Robinson, the smashing of the two-party system, the creation of these new parties, is because we realise that we were fooled. Now, I can say personally I wasn't fooled, but a lot of people were, and I understand why they were.
Well, I can take another
because
side
you want
to
to trust the government.
Yeah, I can show this from another side, and I hope people resonate with this. I had 2 of the jabs, and I'll explain why. The week we went into the first lockdown, my son was born. I had a tiny little baby in my house. And we're basically seeing the mainstream media, the news, Sky broadcasting all these images of what was going on in Italy. All these people are dying. They're showing all these people walking around with masks. Everywhere's being locked down, shut down. You've got people strewn all over hospitals. So me and my ex at the time are sitting there with this tiny little baby. We've got no nurses, no midwives coming to the house. My parents are coming. My parents are coming around the house. They're behind glass. And it's not necessarily us saying we don't care, come in. It was them saying we don't want to come in case we give your son this disease. And if he dies because of it, we've then got to live with the guilt of that. Same on my part. I doubted the vaccine. My ex, maybe not so much because she came from a medical background or her family did. I doubted it, but had it because I could not have lived with myself had something
100%.
happen to my
100%.
son.
And you think, well, what harm is it going to cause? That's the issue. Okay, maybe I don't need it, but what harm is it going to cause? But of course, we do know that there was that there were serious harms that were caused. But I totally understand. I so understand why people went along with so much over that period, because there were actual government units that were in place to nudge us into this particular behavior. What happened was designed not only to terrify us, but to guilt trip us into behavior that the government wanted us to do. So I completely understand. But look, we are in a totally different sort of world now. And you had your radicalization moment, as so many of us did. But when did you get to the news? What's your background? What's your professional background? How did you get into doing this?
So originally I come from construction. I'm qualified. I'm a qualified joiner. Did many different things with kitchen fitting, various different things, worked on site with my best friends for a long time. And it was funny enough, I obtained some qualifications when I was living in Germany, which was assessor qualifications, and I got a level 4 PTTLS. Once I obtained my joinery qualification, it's a long story. I actually explained it in my book, funny enough. But I ended up working in Germany, got these qualifications, came back to the UK, picked up another qualification. One day, contacted a college to do a bricklaying course, and happened to speak to the manager of the assessor that had assessed me doing my qualification. And he just said, "Hi, Bruce, it's Tim. You might not remember me, but Tom assessed you. Didn't you say to him that you had some assessor's qualifications?" I was like, "I did." He said, "And now you've got your joinery qualification. Have you ever thought about doing assessing construction qualifications?" I was like, "No, it's never crossed my mind, to be honest." He said, "Do you want to come in?" So we did this little thing. I went in, had a look around, explained what it was, went for an interview a week later. Next thing I know, I got the job. So I then spent 6 years training level 2 and level 3 carpenters in carpentry and joinery, and then moved on from that to digital development inside the college, which was basically developing and forward thinking how we manage curriculum going forward with artificial intelligence, and how we change how apprenticeships are conducted, be it virtually or in using and utilizing AI to improve education. Unfortunately, that it's better in a college situation because you're not necessarily constrained to a curriculum like they are through GCSE years. So at college, you get a little bit more play with how you can do things. Ultimately, you're teaching someone how to put a roof on a house or whatever, but it's how we could use digital tech to improve that. That then gave me skills, I would say, which ran inside with while I was doing that. I had to set, we had the COVID thing happened. I went through a bout of depression. Me and my missus separated, and all these things came together. And essentially what happened was I then looked at all these things and was like, this has all happened to me because these people are not doing their job. And at the same time, the electric bills are going up. So that then happened as well. So it just got me massively, massively into politics and looking into the background of everything, looking at how councils worked, how parliament works, bills, acts, how they process it, how they put it through, how they adjust them, how they change them, what they tell us they're going to do. Usually turns out that once it's put as an act has completely changed because it's been amended. So the initial headline of the Labour Party are going to bring out a workers' rights bill, what actually gets delivered is completely different to what they sold the public. And I started seeing all this. I'm obviously using a more modern reference of it, but I started seeing this back in the day and just looked and looked and looked. And obviously, because I was now living on my own and technically not really interested in doing much else, I just researched, and it just escalated. And it was like, I need to tell someone about this.
But see,
boom, out comes the phone.
But I love this. I love this. And I'll tell you why I love this, because it's true citizen journalism and independent media. And what you see a lot from the media class and the elite class is a huge amount of snobbery about people's qualifications. Now, I had a row the other day, which I've never spoken about on the show, and I literally don't plan to give the guy any attention, and who knows, you might be friends with him. I'm not even going to name him. I'm not even going to name him. But this particular individual, who I think has been very misleading about who he really is and where he really stands, used as his comeback to me, well, I have an NTCJ qualification.
Don't care.
As if that made him some type of authority. And it's like, trust me. I have worked in newsrooms in the mainstream media for 20 years. The fact that you are qualified and that you've come through that system genuinely means that you should not be trusted, because what that means is you've been taught by all the people who teach all the journalists at the BBC to think in a particular way, to view people in a particular way, to not question authority in a particular way.
I've got such a couple. I don't want to interrupt you, but
No, come in.
It's so interesting. You've just mentioned this. A while back, I had a similar thing. Why do you trust this man? He's not a journalist. He's not a journalist. You don't need to be a journalist to read information and deliver that information to people, because that's reading what someone said. This is what we're going to do. As we know, the mainstream media tell you this. What's actually published in government documents is this, but they manifest it in a way that doesn't really show what they're doing. So what I do is take that and give it to you real. That's not what they're doing. This is what they're doing.
100%.
So I had some people question this. So I actually contacted the National Union of Journalists, NCTJ, to do a level 5 diploma. So I've got many qualifications as assessors qualifications, internal quality assurance. I'm qualified IQA, which means I can assess assessors. So I looked into this and I actually had a conversation. I'm not going to mention any names. I had a conversation. I've got the email. I can show anyone the email. Well, basically turned around and said, she said, why do you want to do this? I said, look, I've been doing this stuff for 3 years. I just want some credibility. I want some credibility that if someone turns around to me and says, you're not qualified, I can say, here's my certificate. Exactly what that was there. And then she turned around and said to me, but it sounds like you've already been doing this. You've got a portfolio of stuff that you've been doing it. So are you just doing it to get for the acknowledgement that you're qualified when you've already got the evidence that you're delivering what you're saying you're doing? And I said, well, sometimes I find that if I wanted to go on a talk show or something and they wanted someone to be a qualified journalist, or as part of their parameters that they needed that, I would lose out on things and not be able to come and maybe speak to people like yourself because I didn't have that. And she said, I wouldn't worry about it and she literally said this to me, I wouldn't worry about it because there are a lot of citizen journalists coming out now. People are delivering the news how they want.
She was so right.
And she was right. And she actually, I don't want to cause her any problems, but she pretty much turned around and said, you don't need it.
No, she was so right. I mean, I don't have a formal journalism qualification, actually. I started it when I was in New Zealand. I mean, I've got a degree.
Yeah.
Right? I've got a degree in political science and media studies. It's completely irrelevant. Totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, my key thing is that from when I was 15 years old, I was working as a journalist. I was interviewing people.
Yeah.
I was writing. I was discovering the news. My qualification, my degree is completely irrelevant. And I mean, I love the fact that we speak about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk didn't go to university.
No,
but he
dropped out, didn't he?
Yeah, but he became the most influential person in American universities.
And how good was he at it? That man, no qualification gives you credibility to absorb information.
No, 100%. And I'm actually very lucky in a way in my story because I am British, but I'm a dual citizen and I was born in New Zealand. My parents were born here. They then emigrated when they were young. And I'm very lucky because when I was able to return to the United Kingdom and get into journalism and go to Fleet Street, there wasn't the same snobbery that I would have faced if I had gone to university in the United Kingdom. I mean, I'm from working class stock.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? My dad's family were miners in South Shields. My mum's family were a black cab driver from Essex.
Yeah.
So there would have been snobbery. Because honestly, even at News of the World, which was the first national newspaper that I worked for my sins, but I learned a hell of a lot. You know, my boss admitted he wanted to hire people from Oxbridge.
Right.
But because I was coming from New Zealand, where no one really knows whether your university was you don't really have a class system in New Zealand or good or bad universities. You know, the country isn't big enough for that, and it's a new country. And so as a result, I managed to avoid all of that.
You infiltrated them.
Yeah, and I often think, gosh, what would have happened? You know, what would have happened if my parents had stayed in the United Kingdom and I had been like, would there have been a snobbery which meant that I couldn't achieve what I achieved in the media?
I think if you fast forward today, if you'd come today under those circumstances, you'd just be no, you wouldn't be allowed in.
Yeah, it's really
because unless you've got that degree, that qualification, that you've been through some kind of training got some work experience, or you're just not allowed in. But this is the thing, and this is what I love. I don't think you need that now.
Well, you don't.
Anyone can pick a phone up.
You don't. And look, Look at the journalists who we have meant to have trusted over the past 10 years. You know, Jon Snow on Channel 4 News talking about all of the horrible white people who voted for Brexit. Well, we're in a majority white country. All of the main correspondents on CNN who we're meant to believe are the best reporters in the world, like Jake Tapper, who knew that Joe Biden was a mentally deranged, you know, dementia-ridden madman and kept silent about it for years until Donald Trump was elected, and then he wanted to make loads of money, so wrote a book about it. It's like, no, I'm not going to trust those people.
Well, it goes back to where we originally started. It has to be money orientated. And the morals are taken out of it because they're just parroting a narrative that's put on their desk. That's how I think it. And that's not what I do. No one's paying me. As much as I get called a Zionist and an Israel, you know, apparently I've been paid by Netanyahu personally.
Like Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, like they all pay me all this money to say all this stuff. And it's like, no, I literally wake up in the morning, open up my computer, find out what's going on, look at what's going on in Parliament, look at parliamentary bills, repeat, see the words that these people are saying, do a little bit of research and put the truth out.
So is Nigel Farage the only option to be our next Prime Minister? Bruce Hamill, who you probably know online as Bruce Unfiltered, is the author of the book Politics for People Who Don't Give a Toss About Politics, How the System Screws You and How to Start Fighting Back. And you say, Bruce, you might not care much about politics, but politics sure as hell cares about you, your job, your bills, your freedom, all shaped by decisions made in rooms you're not invited to. And you think people need to become more educated about politics. And part of this, in your belief, is that Reform UK and Nigel Farage might be able to smash our two-party system. But are you sure? Because lately, and remember, I've been very open about the fact that I voted for Reform UK at the last election, and I was the first in the media to predict that Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister in 2029. And as it stands, I still believe that's the most likely possibility. But are you really sure, based on the recent decisions that Reform UK have been making, that they are going to be the ones to smash the two-party system, that they're going to change the establishment? Because they seem to want to now become the establishment.
Well, I think it depends how you look at the establishment, because for me, and I think people have different interpretations of what the establishment is. So for me, the establishment is this. The Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party and the Conservatives have been the only three main political parties we've had throughout history.
And they've failed.
And have failed miserably. So we obviously had the Tory Party back in the late 1700s. And we had the Whig Party, which are the now modern Liberals. So they were 200 years. Tories changed the Conservatives. Then we hit 1923. 1923, Labour finally knocked the Liberals off their perch. The Liberals disappeared for a little while, resurfaced back as the Liberal Democrats 50-odd years later. But then we're left with 100 years of Tory and Labour rule. For me, the establishment, predating that, but if we're talking about the 20th century, you've got tens of thousands of councillors all with these political parties. Even the Liberals, they hold councils. You've got the Green Party that hold only a minority of councils, but they hold some sway in a lot of the councils. The establishment started years ago, and it's not just, it's the Lords, it's Parliament, it's the councils, it's the NGOs, it's the think tanks, the Fabian Society, the 1922 Club, all these things that have been this mass organisation. People often look at politics as 650 seats in Parliament. It's not. It's so much big, massive system. And I always argue this. But people put this question to me a lot. They say to me, don't you think that Nigel Farage is part of the establishment? Yes, you could argue that he's an ex-Tory 30 years ago. You could also call me a middle school child if you wanted to, because 30 years ago I went to a middle school. Do I think he's part of the establishment? Potentially. Yes. Do I think Reform is the establishment? Absolutely not, because it makes no sense that a political party that's existed for 6 years, who have only just recently got into 10 councils, would be anything part of that wider system. That system is what needs to be broken. Do I think they are the best thing since sliced bread? No, because I don't think any person can 100% commit to a political party and agree with everything. I don't agree with every policy they've got. I don't agree with everything they say. My fight has always been to change the political system. And for me, sometimes that means using the best tool you've got to break something that's existed for 100 years that is institutionally wrong from top to bottom. And I think that's been perpetrated by the last 30 years particularly. 14 years now of Labour, 14 years now of the Tories. And for me, it's the turn of the 21st century. Everything started to go downhill. It was started by Blair and his love for the World Economic Forum, and gradually he's still shaping that party now. He's got his Tony Blair Institute for Fiscal, what is it? I don't know what is the actual name of it is, but it's attached, it's a partner of the World Economic Forum. He's very influential in the stuff we see. He's been mass about digital IDs and stuff, and we can see Labour now starting to institute those policies and the framework for it and the foundation for it. So yes, my opinion is, if Reform UK cannot break the hold that Labour and the Conservatives have, who is going to? Because I do generally believe the way this Labour government is going, we are going to have a general election in 2027. I think that's going to happen. Labour, historically, out of the 8 times they've held Parliament, including this one, they've only completed 4 of them. They were voted out in votes of no confidence on 3 occasions. The first one, they lasted 9 months in 1923. Their second term, they did 2.5 years. I think they had another break around about the 1970s when obviously they caused the winter of discontent. So they were booted out of Parliament again. And that was a short-term stint. And then the next longer-term ones came under Blair, but even under Gordon Brown, another short stint. So they have a history of not completing parliaments. They have a history of not completing their terms. And I personally think it's going to happen again. The question then is, what do we have in place? My personal opinion is this. We have to use a party to break that system who have said they'll bring in things like proportional representation. I generally believe...
They've said it, but I don't believe they're going to stick to it. Just like they've said they're going to abolish the House of Lords, but they don't seem to want to commit to it now.
Then Farage came out and
this is
obviously
the problem.
said...
The closer you come to power, the more you think, actually, this system isn't that bad because it's going to elect us.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said, because obviously Farage put that in his policy that they wanted to break the House of Lords, then argued a few weeks ago, why aren't we allowed to have Lords elected in? And it does raise questions.
And likewise, they're not sticking by proportional representation. But look, I really wanted to pick up on just 2 words that you said earlier. Fabian Society.
Okay, right.
Because I've got to ask you about this. Alex Phillips, who's been a regular guest here on Outspoken, but on her Substack recently, described the Fabian Society as the powerful left-wing cabal running the country into the ground. She said... their symbol is a wolf in sheep's clothing, quite apt. And she says that the Fabian Society should scare you. Now, the reason it's in the news, of course, is because one of the judges that overturned the Epping Bell Hotel decision was a member of the Fabian Society. But actually, lots of people who I respect, including Stephen Barrett, talk about the tentacles of the Fabian Society. So what's your view on whether they are actually a powerful left-wing cabal?
The funny thing is this seems to have come to the fore quite recently. I did a video on it a year ago. I did a detailed video on the Fabian Society a year ago. I'd looked into it and researched them. But again, it goes back to this. There are many think tanks in this country. And I think, just if anyone's watching this, go and Google, or whatever your search browser is or whatever, go and Google think tanks or think tanks associated with political parties. There are hundreds of them. Obviously, the most prominent one for the Labour Party that sticks out is the Fabian Society. I don't think people understand what they are. It's groups of people who are in positions like judiciary. They're in the judiciary. They're in the courts. They are in the police force. They are in the military. They're in all these kind of technology sciences. They're in all these areas, and they are influencing the policy that governments push.
And it's been around since the 1800s.
Oh, before. I think, is it the 18? I think it was, might have been, 124 years.
Yes,
maybe
I think late 1800s.
Yeah. So, they've been around since the 1800s. So this is an institutionalized organization that has a framework. It has an agenda. It has a way of pushing. And it's a group of people that nobody elected. That's the problem. It's a group of people that nobody elected, yet they are influencing MPs. They are influencing policy.
And they're socialist.
Yeah.
They're on the hard left.
Yes, 100%.
And they believe in these open borders on the whole.
Yeah. Open borders. Yeah, free health. But yeah, it's left-wing socialist policy, and they push it and push it and push it. But we have the opposite. You have the 1922 Committee on the right for the Conservatives. Again, another institutionalised think tank, an institutionalised organisation that is made up of people who are not elected. Sometimes they've been elected and default back to them.
And they're also hugely important, aren't they, in the globalist organisations, which are really running down our sovereignty. So, for example, even the UN and the EU.
WHO.
Yeah, exactly. You can argue that the Fabian Society effectively created those globalist organisations.
Yes, and they go hand in hand. And I say this all the time. If you've got someone running a corporation, I'm not going to mention names and stuff, but if you've got a CEO that's earning £3 billion a year, is £165,000 a year Prime Minister telling that person what to do? No, it's the other way around. These people are using the system. If you want to put the head of it as the World Economic Forum, I think it goes above that, way above that. The UN, the WHO, is it the Fabian Society influencing them, or is it them influencing them? Are they just part of the same system? Are they part of this whole system that sits above everything else? Does the World Economic Forum sit above the EU? Does the EU sit above us? Because we know the EU dictates a lot of what we do still. We did not get Brexit. We got Brexit in name. Simple as that. We know that there are legislations and policies that we still retain from the EU. I think the number was that there was 4,000 parts of legislation or directives that we still retain from the EU, and in the Conservatives' time they managed to redo 1,000 of them. So we know for a fact there are 3,000 points of legislation coming from the EU. So my question is, if there are all these global people, these billionaires, these millionaires, these multinational corporation, stakeholder capitalism, this huge network of people, do we actually believe that the top 27 people in the Labour Party are making the decisions and forming this policy? No, it's being influenced from places.
So they're puppets on the string of the Fabian Society.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah,
and I mean, people should know too, I think the vice chair of the Fabian Society is Sadiq Khan.
Yes.
Is that right?
I think so. I'd have to double check that. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is.
I think he's something to do with it.
And I mean, Richard Hermer, I think, the Attorney General, has something to do with it. So this is a vast left-wing, powerful network, which we don't know about. Yeah. And again, if you talk about this, you're accused of being a conspiracy theorist.
But there is enough information out there for it.
Yeah, but you're a conspiracy theorist, Bruce. That's what, like, Dan Hodges from the Mail on Sunday. You are a conspiracy theorist for trying to point out.
I mean, there's only a Wikipedia page on it.
The Fabian Society.
There's literally detailed Wikipedia page.
So you would argue it's hiding in plain sight.
It's hiding in plain sight, and it's the same for everything. I'm not going to lie to you, Dan. I have people still today, when I talk about the World Economic Forum, they say that's a conspiracy. Why do you keep pulling? I'm like, they have a web page. They have a partners program. They have a meeting every year in Davos, which is documented. This isn't something that's hidden in the back doors that we're all making up.
Why are they so determined to destroy the West?
I don't understand it, mate. I think so we've always seen things like the Industrial Revolution. We have these industrial shifts, or these shifts in where new pieces of technology come out to change society. So obviously we can go back to steam, we can use electric, the Industrial Revolution. We are now in 4IR, the fourth Industrial Revolution, and it's AI and data. That's what we're in. It's a massive change. And I think they need to reshape society. They need to reshape how society works to make it fit in. If we go back to 1993, I left school at 16, 1993, the internet comes out. Everybody's up in arms. It's going to ruin things. It's going to ruin people's jobs. Then over time, we adopted it. The people that doubted it fade into the background, and now it's one of the principal systems we use on a data. We use it for everything. We use it for what we're doing today, for making videos, for getting information out across the world. It's a global phenomenon. Now you drop AI into that. We're now in 4IR. It's well known, the fourth industrial revolution. It's the age of robotics. It's the age of artificial intelligence. It's the age of data is now the number one product on the planet. I don't care what anyone says it is. Our information is so important. Our facial scans, our fingerprints, our biometric data, everything is going to be shaped on this. And I think they need to generate a societal collapse, may I say, in the
doing
safest
a pretty
way
damn
possible.
Good job.
Yeah, because I generally err on, if you actually step back and look outside it and critically think about what they're doing, and it can be something as small as Lucy Connolly, it can be something as big as exposing a judge who's worked for the Fabian Society, it can be shutting people down online, censoring them, it can be arresting people and throwing them in jail to scare people. But I think it's all steps towards the ultimate thing they want to do, the line in the sand, which is going to be central bank digital currency, better data control for the government, which they've underpinned and put the foundations in for the Data Use and Access Bill. That's now an act. That's now the underpinning, let's say, framework of a centralized data control system. And who has exclusive access to that? Who can override that? The State Secretary. They can literally go in and say, do you know what? What happened in the Unite the Kingdom protest, that's far-right fascism. We're going to face profile everybody there.
Yep.
Actually, we don't need to face profile because we've already done that, because all of you willingly went to self-checkouts and put your face in the data. And when you clicked and agreed to the terms and conditions of your club card or your bank card, you gave them the access to share your data.
100%.
And the government have just brought in an act which gives them exclusive control to turn around to private organisations that used to protect your data and say, we want that data and you will give it to us.
I know, and that is so chilling.
Yes.
But I mean, what are we meant to do? Because, of course, it's really difficult not to use facial ID on a self-checkout. I hate it. I absolutely despise it. Honestly, I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe in digital ID. I don't believe in facial recognition. I hate it all.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to live day to day as an ordinary human being, rejecting this stuff is really impossible.
And what, because of what I did for a career and what I do now, I'm not against it, but I am against it. I'm against it in the way it's legislated and who and how they use it. And Elon Musk said this yesterday. He underpinned a conversation I had 2 weeks ago, which is, I have no issue with artificial intelligence, robotics, or the future we're going into, which is undeniable. It's going to happen. We can't change it. It's the internet moment again. We're not going to change it. It's the future. My question is do we try, and I said this on a video I did recently, do we trust this government to be in control of it? I don't. And that's the problem.
And for me, Bruce, I feel like this government has two overarching priorities. The first is digital ID.
Yeah.
The second is as an Islamophobia law, which will effectively bring in a blasphemy law and the end of free speech through the back door.
Yeah.
And to me, everything the government is doing and all of the situations it's creating is simply to force through these two policies. Now, Islamophobia law, that could be easy for Nigel Farage to overturn, and you would imagine he would.
Yeah.
Digital ID, far more difficult.
You can't
because
change
once
it.
you've got it,
it's done.
How do you go back?
You can't. I've said
But
this
reform
before,
needs to.
but they can't. And I can. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not a tech expert. But it's just. So when they bring it in, and we keep saying about when they bring it in. It's already here.
Yeah.
It's here.
But it's coming officially as well.
It'll come officially.
I mean, they're
because-
not even trying to shy away from that
they're not hiding
anymore.
from it.
Tony Blair has always wanted this. Slippery Starmer is his protege. Shabana Mahmood is in the Home Office for both of these purposes.
Exactly that. And that's why the reshuffle was done, to put these people in place.
Yep.
The bottom line is it isn't going to go away because they've been facially scanning us for years now. We've all been digitally profiled. We've all got Facebook accounts. We've all signed the T's and C's on our Samsung TV, on our phone. We use our face to get into our phones. We use our fingerprints. We've been subscribing to this for a long, long time. What they're now doing is they've got us 90% of the way, and they're just going to do the final 10%, which is right. Now you're going to have a nice little government app, which is going to have your digital ID in. And if you don't have one, you're not going to be able to do any shopping and you're not going to be able to use your bank account.
But so I come back to my original point, which is that surely that proves, given how terrifying all of this proves, we need a revolution. We don't need a political force that is trying to bow down to the establishment, become part of the establishment. Do you really think Nigel Farage is the man to tackle all of what we've discussed? Now, remember, you were at the Tommy Robinson Uniting the Kingdom March. If you were a Reform UK candidate, you'd probably be fired by now. There was not one official Reform UK representative there. Elon Musk, who, whether you like him or not, personally I love him, but
I do.
even the people who hate him cannot deny he is one of the smartest, most intelligent, most strategic men to ever live.
Yeah.
Certainly at the forefront of the AI revolution, the tech revolution, the space revolution, etc., etc. He doesn't believe Nigel Farage has what it takes. So why do you think he does?
It's not necessarily a belief from me that I believe Nigel Farage has what it takes, because it takes a political party to do it. And I believe that when I went to the Reform UK conference,
and it's got to be a political party who can win.
It's got to be a political party.
And you don't
who can
think
win.
Advance UK can win?
I just think it's too soon for them. I just don't think they've got enough, unless they get a staggering amount of money behind them. It's a lot of work.
It would
to
be
get
a
those...
historic turnaround given where we're at in the polls right now.
And I just and for me, I think we've got to the point where this is undeniable. Reform UK had quite a run up to the last general election. They had a good couple of years. They managed 5 MPs and they got quite a big boost in the final months. Advance have started now. They've made a good start, and I have no problem with Ben Habib. I think he's great. I have no problem with anyone that supports them, and I think they will make a difference. I just don't think it's now. I think it's later. The question has to be asked is, if everyone goes and backs Advance and they don't manage to get a majority of MPs in Parliament, they've got to form a coalition. Who's that with? The Conservatives, Reform UK. Where's their coalition going to be? That's if they can even get big enough to challenge the government. And are they going to be successful in doing that and getting that backing? Where is their council backing? They will be if we've still got Labour and Conservative councils all across the country, any policy and legislation they try, we're seeing it now. Look what Reform are doing in their councils, going against government narratives to reduce DEI contracts. They're trying to save money on immigration hotels. So they're willfully going against the government. So let's say Advance UK, let's say there's a general election 2027, by whatever thing happens, Advance UK managed to get enough MPs across the country, get them promoted, get people in they won't get people in the councils because they've only got till next year to sort that out. They're not going to have people in councils. How is that government going to operate with a House of Lords full of Labour and Conservative, with a minimum amount of MPs, which will probably be what it be, just if they can scrape over the line with 327, that's what they're going to have. And this is still a worry for Reform as well. They're not having that council support as a backdrop, where they're still fighting the establishment on 2 fronts.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a hard one.
It's fascinating for me. Yeah. At the moment, where I stand on this is that I don't think anyone needs to go all in on a political party. We have to go all in on making sure that the political parties have the correct policies. And we can shift the Overton window. Because remember, I think it was only about 6 months ago, Nigel Farage was saying that mass deportations of hundreds of thousands of people was impossible to Stephen Edgington in that famous GB News interview. It's why he won't sit down with people like me on the right, because he's so worried about being challenged on these critical issues. We know what he said at his big mass deportation announcement.
600,000.
Yeah. So the point is, I think it's all too early at this point. But my problem with the way that Reform UK is going is they only want people who are total propagandists, who are there saying everything they're saying and doing is right. Well, no, not everything they're saying and doing is right. And I completely agree that we need the next government to save the country. But that means Reform UK, if it's going to be them, has to be in the right place. They have to have the right policies. They have to be strong. They have to be prepared to change the system, to change the electoral system, to abolish the House of Lords. That's what we need. And I think it's going to be these people's revolution, and that comes in part through the likes of Uniting the Kingdom. It comes in part through channels like yours and mine that is actually going to push them, because the population is at this point ahead of Nigel Farage. It's quite interesting, because you could argue he was ahead of the population when it came to Brexit. He's now slowed down. He wants to become Prime Minister. But we're saying, no.
Keep going.
Yeah, you've got to be radical.
And I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. And I actually, when I was at the Reform UK conference, I was speaking to some veterans who are Reform supporters. And we had an open conversation and said this: it's not about one person at the top. Irrelevant of whether he thinks that or not, a political party is made up of his 650 candidates that are going to be standing in those constituencies. And it's about the people that are going to go and volunteer, the people that are going to leaflet drop, the branch
Yes.
managers, the constituencies, the council members, and getting those people in and voting those people in. It's a massive, massive organisation that takes place to do this. And it's up to the people inside the party. And I openly question this. I actually started a petition on change.org saying, when are the members of Reform UK going to get open debate and democracy on how policy is shaped?
Yeah.
And I got 5,000 people to sign that.
100%, but it doesn't happen at this point because
No.
if so, you're out of the party. But look,
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating conversation. Bruce Unfiltered, who you can find on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on
Instagram,
X as
X,
well.
yeah, yep.
And of course, the book is Politics for People Who Don't Give a Toss About Politics, How the System Screws You, and How to Start Fighting Back. It is available on Amazon right now. Bruce Unfiltered, please come back and we'll do the news next
Yes,
time when we're
excellent.
back, when we're live.
Yes.
Now that everyone's got to know you, we'll do the news of the day, which I love to do. And of course, I am back with you live on Monday, so don't you worry about that. But on tomorrow's show, oh, I'm excited about this actually. On tomorrow's show, Billboard Chris. Now, you must have heard about him. He is this amazing man who, as a dad, by walking around with this giant billboard over him, has been able to change the discussion in the United States of America about the trans issue, about the gender issue. And he is one of those grass levels campaigner who has been able to change the world, quite literally. So he is with me tomorrow. It is going to be a fascinating discussion. Please do come back to us then. Of course, we are live back on Monday where we'll have the Royal Uncancelled after show returning, but there's loads of Royal videos on my YouTube, new ones for you to watch right now. And we'll also have the return of the Greatest Britain Union Jackass 2. But in the meantime, please do, if you support what we do here on Outspoken, sign up to our Substack, the address www.outspoken.live. We're also now available as a podcast too, which you can subscribe to, and please rate and review. That really helps us in the algorithm on Apple Podcasts and Spotify too. But we are back with Billboard Chris tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time. I know he will be of interest to our American audience too. Midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Until then, remember, I promise to keep fighting for you.